in the news, Google plans to spend about $1 billion in the next 10 years in developing roughly about 20,000 new homes. Now, the actual headline is a little bit misleading because 750 million of that is really land already owned by Google. So they didn't pay $750 million for it. That's probably today's worth. They bought it years ago when they bought it for much less.
There's a number of ways to read that comment. So for example, they said that they're going to be donating $1 billion over the next 10 years, right, in order to create more residential housing. Now, a big part of what you got to understand, first of all, it's an amazing gesture. That's awesome. But I think one of the things they brought out is that they're going to be using, like you said, some of their own land. Now, their own land currently has office space on it already. It's an amazing work campus. And honestly, most of their work campuses don't even feel like work. However, to help alleviate the housing crisis, they're going to re-entitle or rezone some of their land to allow for a mixed use, which will then allow them to put apartments or houses or some type of residential, essentially workforce housing. And again, that's kind of seems like a bad word sometimes, but workforce housing is amazing these days. And if Google's going to do workforce housing, I'm sure it's just going to be amazing.
Yeah.
However,
and there's already some people upset at this because if they provide housing just for their workforce, then that doesn't really, the argument is that really doesn't help everyone else in the Bay Area. However, if they have, let's say 15,000 people move into workforce housing, that means those 15,000 people are going to be vacating other units. So it will actually help the local housing market.
It will. And well, a couple of things. And you took some of the words out of my mouth there, which is people are already protesting this. And again, welcome to America. Welcome to California. The not in my backyard or NIMBYs, which we talk about a lot on the show. Again, people are complaining. Google has made an amazing gesture that they're going to allocate funds because they're a highly profitable company for the whole purpose of being able to provide additional housing. And some of that's going to be on their own land. So they're going to a lot of those fees or those dollars that they're dedicating will be in the form of soft cost or impact fees. And again, these don't go to actual shovel ready into the ground to build a house or a residential unit. It's literally zoning and bureaucracy in order to have it properly zoned. And this takes a bit of a process. In fact, you'll see a lot of cities. Well, it started with Emeryville years and years ago. I had a client by the name of Barry Cromartie, and he was the city planner. And if anybody knows Emeryville is a little sliver of land between San Francisco and Berkeley, and it's on the way to the East Bay. In fact, it's right at the beginning of the East Bay, and that used to be a huge, gigantic scrapyard. You'd drive through I-80 and it was nothing but a big, giant scrapyard. And then that city took a very, very proactive approach of rezoning its land that was probably industrial or agricultural and made it multi-unit residential to allow for both retail and residential. And if you come to Emeryville now, it's amazing. It's got a really great cityscape, lots of residential housing, even though there's still a shortage, and amazing retail, restaurants, and walkability. So that's essentially what I think Google is going to have to go through in order to kind of increase their workforce housing, make it easier for commuting, alleviate the very heavily impacted freeways, but already people are complaining.
Yeah. Again, this goes back to exactly what we've been talking about just the last several episodes of housing issues, is that we need supply. We need to build the supply. We need to make it easier for tech companies. In fact, just a couple months ago, there was an article we also talked about here on the show that people were upset that Facebook, Google, Apple, that these big tech companies were not spending money and investing in building more housing and helping out the local housing crisis. Now that Google announced a $1 billion plan, even though it'll help a little bit, it's not going to solve the problem, but it's still at least something, right? I'd rather have $5 than $0.
Right.
And this is what Google is proposing. They're already getting backlash at it. So at the end of the day, what do we as a society want? What do we want? Do we want to solve this housing crisis? If the answer is yes, we have to build more supply. And unless we do that, we're going to be stuck in the same problem, going around in circles and never getting anywhere.
And just to close that, to put things in perspective, this is money spent over a 10-year period. And what was the number of unit count they're shooting for?
20,000. 5,000 being affordable, 15,000 being non-affordable.
Even when you take that count and those residential houses are finally built maybe 5 years, 7 years, 10 years later, and if they actually hit that target goal or count, by that time, more population will have moved in and filled in those units. So it's not going to be immediate. At the same time, you have people already opposing it. So the immediacy of that is going to be delayed, quite a bit, just for the simple fact that people will come forward, protest it, take dollars away that could be used towards actually, brick and mortar, and spin them into the bureaucracy of impact fees and permits.